Hello, this is Mirela Sula, the founder of Global Woman, a global platform that is helping women all around the world to build their confidence and grow their business. I am very fortunate that today I have the most amazing person that I met in my life so far, the dream of my dreams, Les Brown. I think I don't need to introduce him because everybody knows about him, and I'm quite aware that he has touched hearts of millions of people around the world. And I'm so happy that I will share a fantastic piece of interview with him today that is going to inspire all women of the Global Woman platform. Les Brown, thank you very much for accepting being with me today and giving your time for Global Woman. You know,
Thank you.
Women love you. I just told you that.
I'm so glad to hear
and
that.
I thank you for inspiring us.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
So-
you know, I'm so excited about seeing you. But there's something you said to me. I asked you about something that I want to get done, and you said anything's possible. And you said it with such conviction. That's the mindset that people must have. Because your thinking is not common thinking. Your thinking is different. It's unique. Because most people, according to psychologists, over 87% of their negative self-talk goes undetected by the conscious mind. You have deliberately programmed yourself to believe as an optimist, anything's possible. And when you said that, I believed it, because you didn't just say it, you spoke with a conviction. I tell speakers, when I train speakers, who you are behind the words are far more important than the words that you speak. So I just want to say thank you for blessing me with your presence.
Oh, thank you. Probably the fact that I'm a psychologist has helped me a lot, but for sure, all your speeches, your books, your presentations, YouTube videos, if you haven't watched them, please make sure you do. All of that, of course, has helped me a lot and many people that I know around me. So thank you very much again, and I'm sure this is going to be quite unique.
Yes.
Your story is incredible, and probably a lot of people are feeling a bit down and trying to find excuses and complain about the politics or the situation in the world, or of course they come from a poor family background or dysfunctional families. A lot of reasons to complain. You never complain.
No, and well, I do talk about things that happened to me. However, I don't allow them to stop me. My new book is coming out. It's called You've Got to Be Hungry. And what it's about is you have to decide, here's something I want, and I'm going to get it in spite of the fact that it's an unfair world. It's unfair and it's not right that women doing the same work that men do in the United States, the men get paid more money than the women do. That's not right. It's not right. When I was working on a job and they said, if you're the number one salesperson, you become the sales manager and you'll get an override. And I did it 6 months in a row, and they passed me by, and I was required to train people that they then would put over me. Now, that was not right. The only reason they did it because they had the complexion of connection. I had the complexion of rejection. However, I decided I was going to make it in spite of. Now, it didn't mean that I had to make it there. What it meant was, Helen Keller said, when one door closes, another door opens. But most of us spend time trying to get into a closed door rather than to create a door ourselves that we can walk through unchallenged and be able to live our own dreams. And so women have always had to be able to make it against the odds. There was a gentleman by the name of Fred Astaire, and back during the time he was in Hollywood, they said he was the greatest dancer in the world. But the young lady that he danced with, she went with him step for step, backwards, in heels. I bet you could do that. So women have always had to be able to make it against the odds. My mother, she adopted 7 children. I was one of the 7, and she made it against the odds. 3rd grade education, but she had a PhD in motherhood, and she made a way out of no way. Women have always had to do that, and I'm excited to be a part of this interview and to be in the presence of
Thank
greatness.
you. So you are saying, of course, there is so much injustice out there in the world, but our duty, our responsibility is not to complain about unfairness, but to prove that we can make it possible anyway.
You have to do it in spite of. Communities, countries are created by people, and they can be changed by people. And the secret is to maintain commitment through all the frustrations and disappointments we are going to encounter in attempting to change the way that we function, and attempting to change the way that we treat women, and attempting to change the way that we treat each other. That we have to understand this is a human problem, and human beings created it, and human beings can begin to resolve it.
Amazing. Well, as human beings, we usually tend to see the problem, not the solution. But not all the people have this ability to turn the perception in a direction that can find them, can guide them to the solution. You are a person that you do this all the time. Is there any secret behind?
No, Einstein, I feel, said it best when he said, I don't think I'm so smart. He said, I just have more patience than most people. Most people want change to happen just like that. It's not that kind of world. You have got to be willing to be patient, and it takes persistence, and it takes going through some frustrations and disappointments and setbacks and things happening that you cannot anticipate, and just keep coming back again and again and again. And I believe that angels are dispatched. I believe that somebody say, you know what, she's not going to stop. Let's let her go. She's going to bring that magazine out here. Let's go find a wimp that we know we can stop. That when you are persistent, when you're willing to give up 26 years of your life in prison, then the universe rewards you by your becoming the president of the country that imprisoned you. That when you have a vision and a goal of something you want to do, and you keep showing up and showing up and showing up, something's got to give. Something is going to give. They did the study, and they said at a certain mathematical angle, a spool of thread, after it's released and hits a 2-ton steel beam, after so many hits, pip, 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 eventually it will begin to vibrate.
Yeah.
And eventually it will move. That's what you're doing. That's what we're doing in tapping into the consciousness of people and helping to create a different kind of world, and how women should be seen not as just receptacles for men's orgasms, but as thinking human beings who have something to give, something to contribute to life. And that takes time to reverse that conditioning. I saw the newspaper yesterday in London, beautiful young lady that was raped and killed by her uncle. You know, what kind of society that creates that kind of mindset, that you can give yourself permission to be that inhumane to another human being? And it's going to take time to reverse that thinking and that type of behavior.
Yeah, you're right, and it feels that a shift is happening in the world.
Yes,
because
it is.
More and more women are wakening up. It feels like we have been sleeping for a long time. Now it's time to waken up, to come to a higher level of consciousness, to connect with higher self inside us, and to see, like you said, sometimes we can't anticipate things.
Yeah.
And we don't have control on what we don't have control, but we can take our responsibilities on what we have control. What can we do in the world? How can we coordinate and co-create with men, not feeling that we are against them or we are separate, but working together? Because as we know, we left the world in the man's hand for a long time. As it looks now, is messed up. Probably.
Oh, you think?
I think. Yeah.
Yes.
I think probably you need some help from us as well.
Yes, you do. We need a whole lot of help. Yes.
So how can we come to that level that men can see us as partners?
Think about, where would the world be now if those who are in control had been inclusive in their thinking rather than exclusive? Where would we be? If women were allowed to participate, if people were allowed to participate, even though they had an accent, even though they had slanted eyes, even though they came to the table with different sexual orientation, even though they might be in a wheelchair, where would we be if all of the thinking that's available on the planet came together to collaborate and to work together with a mindset that we can solve this, that we can create a different kind of world? Where would we be. When you're a person of color, like in the United States, we had to do it in spite of. I mean, just imagine, when I came up as a kid, I'm 73, and I would get on a bus with my mother, and people would be seated in the back, and there were seats up front where white people were seated. And even though there were some seats there, Mama said, "Keep walking, Leslie." And I had to go past a yellow line to sit down. I said, "Why can't we sit up there?" She said, "We can't." But the only reason we couldn't sit there because we were black. So that culture said, you are less than. That culture, those laws in society were designed to make people like me feel inferior. But just think, where would we be? A black man, George Washington Carver, to this day, he was able to create penicillin out of a peanut. To this day, they don't know how did he do that. Over 300 different patents and ways using just a peanut that he was able to do. What if he was able to participate and contribute? I remember I was invited to speak at the beginning of my career in Wildwood, Florida, and when I came, unbeknownst to me, they thought I was Les Brown and the Band of Renown. So when I knocked on the door at the back of the theater, guy said, "May I help you?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I'm Les Brown." He said, "You're Les Brown's driver?" No, I am Les Brown. He said, "You're not the band leader." I said, "No, I'm not." You know what he did? He looked at me, and then he spit. He was trying to spit on my shoes, and the spit hit the floor. Well, first of all, I was so glad that he didn't spit in my face, because I would not be here. I would have grabbed him. Let me tell you something. I'd have kicked his butt. All right, no. But what he did was he spit on the floor, and he said, "Follow me." And he came, and people already seated, and they had these album covers of Les Brown and the Band Renown on the walls in the auditorium. And I had to think quickly. And he went to the microphone. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Les Brown." Usually someone will introduce you, they'll turn and they will shake your hand and greet you, and they'll walk away. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Les Brown." And he looked at me with contempt, and he walked off. He did not shake my hand and greet me and create a hostile environment. So when I walked to the microphones, I'm thinking, how am I going to deal with this? Everybody in that room at this time, this is in 1980, they were shocked. They knew black people as football players and basketball players and baseball players, but I was a speaker. I'm the only black face in the room. And then I looked up, and there was a sign that said, "You have the power to seize the hour, to live your dream." And so I looked at the audience, and I said, "I need to take control of this room." I said, "I want you to think about why we are here. We have the power to seize the hour, to recognize your children, these young people who made the commitment to keep their commitment to their commitment, these young people who realize they're being molded now for what they will be in the future." I said, let's give them a tremendous round of applause. I knew they were going to clap for their children, right? So they just clapped, all right? Then I had to be strategic. I said, "And all the parents, would you please stand up? The aunts, the uncles, the fathers, the mothers, the grandparents, stand please. Young people, these are the people that loved you to this place. These are the people that believed in you, that prayed for you for this moment where we are. Let's seize this opportunity to recognize them with love and appreciation." Give them a tremendous round of applause. And they were clear, and the parents were standing like,
so you increased the energy in the room.
Not just increased the energy, I took over the room with love and appreciation. Now, after they did that, they looked at me and said, "Now, what are you going to do?"
Yes, where does this come from?
Well, it's coming from a place.
Power, all this energy inside you. Where is the source?
The source is in all of us. Who are we? Behind our eyes, we are the same. And so what I do is call forth that source, which I call greatness. I believe that when you're pursuing your greatness, you don't know what your limits are, so you act like you don't have any. And then I looked at the audience and I said, "You have greatness in you. I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about you. And everything I'm going to say, you already know it, but you have greatness in you." And speaking from that place, the universal language of acknowledging each other and seeing the value in each other and loving each other, that began to dispel the rejection, the hostility, the racism in the room. And they began not to focus on my paint job, but focused on me as a humanity, because at the end of the day, and Jane Elliott said this, it's not a black race and a brown race and a yellow race and a red race. It's just one race. It's the human race. That's brought together by love. God is love, and he who dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in them. And women are the greatest embodiment of love to me, that I'm here because of two women. One gave me life, and the other one gave me love. God took me out of my biological mother's womb and placed me in the heart of my adopted mother. And I think that this shift that is taking place, that women are the pioneers of that and have always been, and will help move us into a different kind of future. There's something that Mother Teresa said, Lord, I know you know how much we could bear. And I could bear.
I come from the same country
yes.
as Mother Teresa.
Is that right? She said, Lord, I know you know how much I can bear.
Yeah.
I just wish you didn't have so much confidence in me.
Do you say that sometimes?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's so
As I
true.
speak to you, my oldest son had a stroke. He's being fed with a tube in the stomach. He dropped from 265 pounds down to 63 pounds, my namesake, who doesn't want to live because he can't swallow. I'm able to reach people around the world, strangers that I perhaps will never see, and I can't reach my own son. And I'm praying God have someone that can speak to him, that he could hear their voice. He could hear their voice, but he can't hear mine. And I have the saying, don't speak where you don't have a voice, because some people can never hear you because they're too familiar with you, you know. And so we will always be in this position of what Forrest Gump said. He said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And you have to deal with it. You have to suck it up and handle it.
Wow. It's so powerful, because I resonate in everything you say, and I'm sure a lot of women will resonate with you. And I so much admire for the fact that you speak so highly about your mother, and the way that you put her like a pedestal. It's really amazing. I know you have talked a lot about her, but can you share with us something that you never shared before about your mother? What makes her so special?
Interesting you should say that. I had a moment with myself the other night, praying for my son. And I asked myself, is there something I have not done? I, as a kid, had diphtheria. And it's a congestion of the lungs. And another friend of mine named Grams, he had it too. We were 10 years old, and we would sit in the backyard with two chairs side by side. One day I came to the backyard, and Grams was gone. He died. And I remember that night when Dr. Johnson came over, and doctors used to make house calls at that time, and said, Mamie, give Leslie these drops every 2 hours. Now, she had to be up all night to do that, and she had to go to work on Miami Beach to cook for families. We ate the food left over from the families she cooked for to keep their children. We wore the hand-me-down clothes of the children. And I remember distinctly with my mother, hands trembling as she was getting the drops out and putting them in my mouth. And she'd wrap me with some leaves called Palmer Christian leaves in my shirt, saying, God, don't take my son. Take my life. Let me die. But don't take my baby. And there I am, I'm 10 years old, and I'm thinking, she didn't give birth to me. She didn't carry me for 9 months. And she's asking God to take her life and allow me to live. And so when I was praying for my son the other day, I said, God, I had not asked you to do this, but Mama could not have loved me more than I love my son Calvin. I beg you, take my life. Give my son more time. I'm 73. I'm an old man now. And I'm okay with going now. Take my life. So I told this story on the internet, and a lady texts back, God, don't listen to this fool. She said,
he has your
the
genes.
God I serve can do it all. He can save you and your son. We don't serve a limited God. She said, get rid of that prayer. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. And so, but I thought, at that time, that my mother, who never had any children, what kind of woman is this, who would take in 7 children at 46, third grade education. And a reporter asked her when I got a contract to do a talk show in '92, and he asked her, how did you know you can raise 7 children by yourself? And she said, I believe the Lord will make a way somehow. And that's what governs me. I believe even when I don't know what I'm going to do. And I say to people, you don't have to know how you're going to do it. That's why we're taught, lean not unto thine own understanding, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. There's some things that we can do that we don't know, that eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor is in the heart of mankind what God has in store for us. And what I learned from my mother, that we must push forward in spite of, even though we have no evidence for it. When the doctors looked at me 21 years ago and said, you have cancer, and it's metastasized to 7 areas of your body. And I started smiling. He said, why are you smiling? I said, man, 7 is my lucky number. I said, I'm one of 7 children. I was born February the 17th. Joshua marched around the walls of Jericho 7 times. Naaman dipped himself in the river Jordan 7 times. God created the world in 7 days. I said, 7 is my lucky number. That means that cancer is getting the hell beat out of it right now. And he said, I need you to talk to my father. He said, what an attitude. But I got this attitude from my mother. She was like you when you said, anything's possible. And that's the kind of mindset that we must have, to leap and grow our wings on the way down, to understand the words of this God, who said, if you're not willing to risk, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't become your best. And if you can't become your best, you can't be happy. And if you can't be happy, then what else is there? Walk by faith and not by sight. Judge not according to appearances. Call forth those things that be not as though they were. Anything's possible. Oh, help me out, somebody. Thank you. You can see my medication is wearing off. All right.
Yes.
I'll behave. I'm going to be good. I promise. Okay, yes.
So you say yes, and then you don't need to know how you are going to
No.
get there. You
How
just-
is none of our business.
Yes.
The key is to make a commitment. Once you make the commitment. 1961, President John F. Kennedy was asked, how will we go to the moon? How can we beat the Russians there? And as a kid, we would say, to illustrate the impossibility of something, we would say, you have as much possibility of doing that as a man going to the moon, because it was considered impossible. And when he looked at Warner Van Braun, the most brilliant scientist of that day, Warner, what will it take for us to go to the moon? And he said 5 words: the will to do it. The will to do it. On those 5 words, the president called a news conference and said, in 10 years, we're going to go to the moon in 10 years. We did it in 8. The will to do it. What will it take for us to create a culture in our cities, in our countries, in the world, in the workplace, for women to be seen as equals? The will to do it. What will it take for us to reduce the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the domestic violence of women and children and those who are powerless and voiceless? The will to do it. What will it take for us to stand up to the universal bullies, the most powerful bullies on the planet, Donald the Klansman, drama queen Trump? The will to do it. Oh, behave. The will to do it. Whosoever will, let him come. Everything that exists, somebody had the will to do it. In spite of the defeats, in spite of the setbacks, in spite of the disappointments, in spite of the frustration. Someone said, we've had it. No, we're going to get this done. You will never, ever do this again to us. I believe it's going to mushroom. It's a spark in the forest that it's going to begin to spread around the world. There are some places how women are treated just words cannot express. And it has happened so much and it's been so prevalent that it's accepted. And we must decide never to go to sleep on this. I have 5 daughters. And I remember my sister, my baby sister, Margaret Ann, she called me one day crying, and her boyfriend, he struck her. He was a minister too. I was a disc jockey in Columbus, Ohio. I was not a normal person at that time. I flew down to Miami and I waited outside his church. When he got out, I said, "You hit my sister." And he said, "You know how the devil is?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You better talk to him." And I beat his behind. I said, "You tell the devil, don't make you do that no more, okay?" He said, "Okay." I kicked his butt. I said, "Now you take that message to the devil." He never hit my sister anymore. In fact, they quit. She was still in love with him. He said, "Don't call me no more. Your brother crazy." I was a crazy dude. I kicked his butt real good. "Oh, the devil made you do it." Well, tell the devil, don't you do that anymore.
Can you share with us some other crazy things that you have done? Those that you can share.
Yes, I have no problems at all. I'm very transparent. I tell you, one of the funniest things I have done to myself, I saw Malcolm X, who was just an incredible orator and debater. I saw him debate at Harvard, and I think I'm a combination in terms of communication style of Malcolm X and Dr. King. Malcolm X was a communicator, but Dr. King was an orator. So when you see me speak in the Georgia Dome, I'm an orator at that time. I've listened to I Have a Dream and By Any Means Necessary thousands of times. So anyhow, I applied to become a part of a play at Miami-Dade Junior College. I was not a student, but I went to audition for a role in a play, and I enjoy theater very much. And I was the only black person there. And so we're like 19, 20. So these white dudes said, "Hey, you know what? There's a big event going on at the other end of the campus. Of the campus. Why don't we drive by and moon them?" Okay, mooning is when you guys get together and stick the butts out the window of the car, right? So I said, "Yeah, that's a great idea." So I said, it's 6 of us, but I'm the only black dude. So they got, I was at the back window, the 2 guys went over the driver's or the passenger side, the other one in the back. And so I had my butt out the window, and the other guys had their butts out the window. And then we went back over to the campus, and we went into this classroom. So the security came, he looked around and said, "You?" I said, "Yes." "You were in that car." I said, "What car are you talking about?" "The guys who came by had their naked behinds hanging out the window." I said, "This is discrimination. How are you going to just come in here and point me out because you had the only black ass hanging out the window?" I said, "Oh my God, I forgot." So I got suspended, then he gets suspended. It's called white privilege. That was me. I was cracking up. I said, "Oh my God, I forgot. Y'all should have told me. Maybe they could have painted my butt or something." But you know, when you're a kid, you're 19, 20 doing crazy stuff. I had a wonderful time doing that.
So it seems that you have enjoyed your life a lot despite the
Yes.
challenges and of
Yes,
course.
because we don't know how much time we have. Somebody asked me, "What do you want your legacy to be?" And I thought and I said, I aspire to inspire until I expire. And I told my children, when they say,
Wow.
"Your daddy's dead," don't allow them to embalm me for 3 days. Come down to the funeral home and bring a microphone with you and put it in my hand. Just put it in my hand. I won't be stiff. And if I don't grab the microphone, say, "You got to be hungry." You can say, Dad's gone now. He's gone. He's out of here. You can go ahead on and embalm him and get him out of here. He's through. He's finished. Because I believe that's why I was here. That I teach people live full and die empty. That all of us have some books, inventions, ideas, creativeness in us. We were created on purpose, with a purpose, and that we have to develop the courage and the willingness to bring it out here in spite of the fact that you live in an environment that's homophobic, in spite of the fact that you're living in an environment where women are treated inferior, in spite of the fact that you're living in an environment that's racist and that does not recognize your humanity. You must decide, I'm going to do this no matter what.
Wow. Yeah. And you mention a lot in your speeches, in your books, like a lot of people probably expect to have easy work to do, because if it is easy, it's going to be a hard life, and if it is going to be hard work, then your life is going to be easier. So I really love that one. Can we?
Yes, that life is hard. And I said to Mike Williams, he said, Brownie, you can do more than be a disc jockey. I used to be a radio personality. Look out, baby, this is me. LB Triple P, Les Brown, your platter playing papa. There were none before me, and there will be none after me. Therefore, that makes me the one and only. And he said, Brownie, you can do more than that. You can change people's lives like Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, like Robert Schuller, who wrote Possibility Thinking.
Yeah,
Wayne
Dyer,
Pull
him.
Your Own Strings. Yes, absolutely. So I said, but it'd be hard. He said, Brownie, if you do what is easy, give yourself a pass, come up with excuses. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And he was absolutely right. And we must be willing to do hard.
So this is a message for all women, that it's going to be tough out there.
Yes.
And it's not going to be easy. No. But if it is easy, everybody can do it.
Yes.
And things are difficult until they become easy.
Well, let's talk about struggle. Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of a little boy going through an area of the forest, and he saw a caterpillar. He was trying to come out to cocoon. And he watched, the butterfly. He watched and he observed, and after a while, the butterfly was able to come out of the cocoon, hit the floor, hit the ground of the forest, flutter its wings, and then fly off. And a few weeks later, he came through that same area and saw another butterfly struggling to get out of the cocoon. And naively, he decided, I'm going to help it get out faster. And he took a safety pin out of his pants and he made a little incision. And the butterfly fell out of the cocoon, hit the ground, fluttered its wings, and died. Because the struggle itself gave it life.
Wow.
And so...
What a powerful message.
Yeah, so no test, no testimony. The struggle itself. When the dream is big enough, the odds don't matter. The struggle itself. They said in life you will always be faced with a series of God-ordained opportunities, brilliantly disguised as problems and challenges. Challenges will introduce you to a part of yourself that you don't know right now. And so we embrace the challenge and we grow through the challenge rather than just go through the challenge.
Yeah, we live with them.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for being in this area of our discussion, because this is very important. Especially women now have realized that if they want to find more, to connect with their power and to stand in their power, they also need to become more entrepreneurial, because the financial freedom is what we get the most of the power, because we know a lot of women are abused because they are dependent in the finance of other people. Or so now, a lot of women are starting their own journey as entrepreneurs and starting their own business, but they are facing a lot of challenges. At the beginning it looks like, oh, it's a great idea, a brilliant idea, then they see it's not such easy, they give up. And we know statistics tell that most of the businesses, more than 80% of the businesses, they fail before 2 years, within the 2 years. So, what would be your advice, your wisdom to share with women entrepreneurs that can motivate them, inspire them to keep going and be successful?
Three things.
Three things.
My mother was an entrepreneur. When she could no longer work on Miami Beach for these wealthy families and work in the M&M cafeterias, and because of her arthritic condition in her shoulder and her legs, and she could no longer move those big pots at the M&M cafeteria, they fired her. And so my mother had to become an entrepreneur. And so they didn't have multi-level marketing during that time. So she wrote numbers. It was like a lottery. She sold moonshine. She sold homebrew. Ultimately, I never talk about this on stage because I don't have the emotional bandwidth to do it without crying. She went to jail.
Wow.
She went to prison. And so one of the things that I'm training speakers, never tell a story that you're not emotionally capable of handling yourself, because this is no place for therapy. But what I learned from my mother, she always said every tub must stand on its own bottom. There was a guy that had an interest in her. My mother was very beautiful. And he came and he saw me and my twin brother and my foster brother, Leonard and Angelo. And he said, you know what, Mamie? These boys can pick some good cotton. I want to take them to Georgia with me so they can pick cotton. And my mother, being an independent person, my mother who knew this guy had the money to be able to take care of us, and all she had to do was to be willing to submit to him abusing and using us to pick cotton on this farm that he had in Georgia, Macon, Georgia. And my mother, being the entrepreneur that she was, she said, I'll take care of him. You need to go now. I'll do this. My mother made a commitment to my birth mother that we will never go to bed hungry, and we did not. That we will always have a roof over our head, and we did. And we will always have clothes on our back. Women have always been the catalyst to say, I'm going to provide for this child or these children. Many children, if they waited on the father, I remember talking to a guy, saying, man, you should be paying child support. And he said, oh, you know, they're going to eat, the mother will take care of them. I say, but she didn't get it through immaculate conception. You played a role in this too. You should participate. But a lot of guys who I call sperm donors, they'll walk away and leave it for the woman to struggle, to make life difficult for her if she doesn't submit to what he wants her to do. And that's why what you're saying is so important. That's why the Global Woman magazine is important. Teaching women, and now it's easier than ever before because of technology. 2007, computers became the person of the year for Time magazine. Why? Because now, for the first time in the history of the world, everyday people, men and women, have not only access to information, but access to e-commerce. There are women who are becoming entrepreneurs, who are becoming wealthy through the comfort of their home with a computer. Global entrepreneurs. This is where we are. What a mighty God we serve. It's incredible. And so there are more women now who have a level of independence, more women who have a strong sense of identity. When your life has a strong sense of identity, then now that gives your life a sense of purpose. And when your life has a sense of purpose, now that gives your life a sense of direction. And so there are women who don't just see themselves as wives or as mothers, but now they see themselves as global entrepreneurs. They see themselves as living a life of contribution. They see themselves as somebody not just standing in the shadows, but can live and be full and fulfill and make a difference on the planet. And women have always done that, but now they have more access in certain areas of the world than ever before. That's a good thing. But there's some women who live in areas that they can only allow their eyes to be seen. The There are no men going around like that, but this is some concept that a man created. And I'm working with a woman that I'm teaching to speak now, and her book is called Raising the Veil.
Wow.
And that's how she lived for many years.
Wow.
She could only expose her eyes. Beautiful, breathtakingly beautiful, and brilliant. But some man said, you only need to be able to see. No one needs to see you. Women who are made to feel, to be invisible.
Wow. Thank you so much, Les Brown, for being in this world, for making your mission a purpose to heal humanity. I believe that this is an interview that will definitely create a very positive impact in many women's lives that will watch it. And thank you for finding the time to share it with us and for being who you are. And please, please keep living another 100 years because
Thank
we
you.
need you.
Thank you. Well, this has been Mrs. Mamie Brown's Baby Boy and Veronica Tan's Pride and Joy. You have something special. You have greatness in you. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yes, and Veronica Tan is a woman that leads by example.
Yes.
And we need more women like her.
Without any question. That's my very good friend.
Thank you very much again.
I appreciate you, and thank you for who you are and the
And
commitment you've made with your life. The world is a better place because
I
you're
think
here.
universe had a plan.
Excellent. It was a good plan.
Yes, a good plan for us. Watch this interview with Les Brown. Thank you for following us. We'll keep you posted with more inspirational interviews. Thank you.